This is so exciting! This video contains spoilers for episode 24 of campaign 3 of Critical Role. Hi everybody, my name is Luna and welcome to Crit Role Conspiracies, the show where we talk about all the wild and wacky theories that critters have about campaign 3 of Critical Role. Today's video is sponsored by Forgotten Fables, Wolves on the West Wind. But more on that later. After that incredibly tense scene at the end of last week's episode, we actually end up cutting straight to the next day, and I was hoping maybe we would get a little bit more from that scene, but it makes sense to have a nice, fun ending right there. And of course we pick up with them traveling to Bassuras via the skyship so that they can hunt down Armand Treshy. Aram, being the most perceptive of the group, spots a small caravan traveling and something much larger burrowing in the ground following them. Aram alerts everybody and wakes everybody up, and the captain informs them that this is a dustra.
You also see, out of the dust, this large ripple just kind of tearing, breaking across the surface. And for a brief second, you see something emerge from it. It looks like a squid. It has this long head that kind of dives outward, and you see these tendrils that kind of come behind it. It's like a massive, mutated cephalopod, but it's covered in spines and weird kind of hooked, like horned toad style ridges that go across the sides of its body. And at the very point where the head emerges, you see it split into 4 different kind of jaw openings before it dives back down below.
Very strange. Gordy, who is actually a character that I forgot to include in my rundown last week, one of the characters on the skyship, mans one of the ballista, and Chetney, Fearne, and Ashton do as well. Chetney tries to alert the caravan using a horn of silent alarm, but thinks that it doesn't work, and I was like, oh no, Marwa, please don't kill Marwa. But it seems like Matt clarified that it might have actually worked, and given that it's a horn of silent alarm, maybe Chetney just doesn't hear it because it's like a magical sound. So I'm hoping that Chetney is not gonna hunt down and terrorize Marwa like he did the shopkeep last week. They all shoot the ballista at the creature to try and distract it and to try and stop it from attacking the caravan. And the captain talks about how these creatures are not normally carnivorous, that they're vegetarian, and that they generally don't attack people, so this is really strange behavior. They all shoot the ballista at the creature and do manage to hit it with some of them, and Imogen casts Fly and goes down in an attempt to communicate with it. She commands it to stop, and then she uses her detect thoughts ability to kind of burrow into its mind and learn why it's chasing the caravan. And really interestingly, we learn that it has these thoughts or feelings of being lashed, of being driven from their home and from their spawn, their children being taken from them. So somebody is using these creatures for something. And the question is, what? What benefit is it to send a terrestrial squid after caravans, especially given I imagine crawler gangs and stuff would want to take over them. Maybe it's the crawler gang sending them. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I don't really have any good ideas about that this week. Imogen tries to convey that the party can help this creature, but doesn't really seem to get through, and they all kind of try and decide what they're going to do, because clearly they don't want to kill the creature, but they also don't want it killing the caravan, and in an attempt to communicate with it more, FCG casts Speak with Animals and has a little conversation with it, I guess. The creature says that, yeah, it's looking for its spawn, and FCG tries to persuade it to stop attacking the caravan, but rolls a natural 1, so unfortunately is not able to do so. So I guess the logical conclusion is that they fire another harpoon at it, and then they pick it up and fly it somewhere else and then put it back down again. I think Imogen said she cast Featherfall on it as well to kind of help with that process, because this is a gargantuan creature. It is actually amazing that they didn't damage the skyship doing this. They go down to the caravan, and it turns out that no, they didn't take the creature's spawn, and they're very thankful, and they give up what they have, which I think was an apple and a few coppers or something like that. Oh, and then of course I forgot that they have to deal with Ashton, because Ashton rolled a natural 1 on their dexterity save, so they are hit with one of the harpoons and have to get that out of them. Very dramatic. They end up feeding the copper that they got from the caravan to FCG, which is when we get this incredibly cursed detail, which I refuse to believe is canon.
FCG, you want some copper?
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's got froze,
So weird.
Does FCG have a tongue? It just goes like, ah.
Yeah, do you have like a silver
every time.
flap for a tongue?
Let's just say yeah.
It's now canon.
But it's made of flesh.
Oh God, no!
All of a sudden,
the only
meat tongue.
That's the
No.
only thing that's actually alive.
They were a cyborg the whole time.
I hate this.
I know.
Coming back.
Flesh tongue FCG can't hurt me.
The rest of the day passes without incident, and we end up at Bassuras, this kind of ramshackle city that seems to have been built and scavenged and pieced together, very much a like Mad Max City kind of vibes. Captain Xandus drops them off, and as discussed in the last episode, they fly off the ship elsewhere because they're worried about the ship getting like taken for scraps and for parts. And Bell's Hells are meted by a crawler gang that comes out of the gates to welcome them. That's probably a generous turn of phrase in this instance. And we get to learn what these crawlers actually look like.
You hear this sound. It sounds like dozens of grinding metallic devices, like axes on axes. You hear like sparks and metal being pushed and ground against other parts of jagged scrap, as well as an odd, different kind of reverberation in the ground. You all turn back over in the direction of the city, and you now see from the plumes of dust massive machines. The front themselves, these thick, wide wheels covered in like scaled spikes that just grind into the dirt as they cruise over. And the first one you get a glance at, the back of it, is built like the rear side of a sort of terrifying beast horse. A pair of back legs that just grind and push into the ground with like metallic claws. As it grinds around the side, you can see on the back of it 2 figures riding it, kind of one holding a set of handles to the back and the one in the front having almost like a set of handlebars, turning it as it grinds down. And you see about 4 more, all same general build, but variations that seem like they've been cobbled by whatever could be found, and on top of that, built to be unique to whatever the personality of its owners was.
Ashton tells them who they are, and they seem to have some kind of sway here. Seems like whatever family name they have or whatever affiliation they have does have some kind of value, because the crawler gangs do back off and just essentially say, like, don't cause any trouble. If you do cause trouble, you better clean it up yourself. Ashton asks if the death wish is still a thing. The person responds, when is it not? And Imogen says to Ashton, like, what's the death wish? And Ashton, as per usual, is very cagey and won't give a straight answer. They make their way through the outside of the city. Outside these city walls, there's like a settlement of tents and kind of ramshackle things as well, of people who are not allowed to enter the city or who don't want to enter the city for whatever reason, and they come to the large gates. And it seems like word spreads fast, because not only are the party being followed by someone, which is what Orem notices, Ashton is already being greeted by people, and the word has got around that Ashton is back. I am so interested to learn more about Ashton's history here. It seems like they do have a rather entrenched history, and there's gonna be some juicy stuff there. I really loved the description of this city. It was just very fun and vibrant and interesting. I liked how a lot of people are really armored here, so it seems to be like a pretty rowdy place where stuff can go down at any moment. And as we find out later, that is the case when the party gets into a little bit of a scuffle. Ashton suggests that they stay at the Raha Den, which is a place you can stay. I do the words good. They hire 3 rooms from the Raha Den, and Ashton thinks that maybe they should put all of their valuables into the portable hole and to watch out for pickpockets, because this is a place where a lot of crime happens. Upstairs, once they're in their room, they pull out the orb that Estros gave them to help them locate Treshy. And within the orb, there is like a glowing light that is currently not moving, probably because it's nighttime, Treshy might be asleep. And the party question Ashton about where there might be a good or like a fancy place for Treshy to stay, because he's kind of like a fancy boy. And Ashton sort of says there isn't really anywhere, but there is one place, which is Taste of Taldore, which is a like franchise themed restaurant. And the reason I say franchise is because this restaurant also appeared in EXU Kaimal as a like kind of dodgy, you know, like those themed restaurants that are like sort of tourist attractions, but they're also kind of like dodgy at the same time. And once again, Ashton is being Ashton and being super cagey.
You know, there are things I will answer about this place. There are things that I want to keep secret that I will let you know about what they are. This is one thing that I don't think I could describe accurately. It is its own special.
Guys,
Can't wait to see it. I've
when
always
you
wanted to
ask
visit Taldora.
Ashton a question,
Oh, boy.
the answer comes in 24 to 48 hours.
Thank you. I have a lot to read here.
Taste of Taldora.
I just don't like talking when we're walking around the city.
They take a long rest, but cleverly set a guard, which I think was a very smart decision. And before they go to sleep, FCG asks Imogen if she would like him to do the connection where he connects Laudna and Imogen so that Laudna can go to the dream with her. And her response is very much like, oh, that's great. No, I don't want to do that. At least that's how I read it. And unfortunately, we didn't really get any scenes with Imogen and Laudna talking about what happened. So it seems like Imogen is still holding potentially some hard feelings about it. Fearne takes the first watch and, as usual, doesn't do any watching at all. But she examines FCG to sort of try and work out, I guess, how he works, if he has any buttons and things. And a thing that I thought was curious and interesting was that she kind of takes her claws, which the character art we've never really talked about, like the ends of her fingers are all black. Very strange, but she takes those and kind of like rakes them across the marks on FCG's chest, which are kind of like blades of grass, but they do seem to be like claw marks. FCG takes watch next and notices a bird outside the window and is extremely freaked out by it again. FCG wakes up Chetney as it's his watch next and tells him the story of what happened with this bird.
There's a bird. There's a bird that hates me. It wants me dead, or worse, humiliated.
Why, FCG? Why?
I don't know. I don't know what I did to it, but it hates me and won't let me alone. It's unrelenting. It chases me everywhere I go in the waking hours and the evening hours. It haunts me. Always overhead, waiting for me to expose myself.
Understood. I may use you as bait, but
No, please don't.
we'll get it. No, it's okay. The less you know, the better.
Don't tell the others. They'll think that this is foolish, but
What, being scared of a hawk?
it's not. I'm not scared of the hawk. I just don't know what it wants from me. And also, it's not a hawk.
I can't imagine what it would want. Well, if you recall or recollect any more details.
It's got a name.
Oh! You lead with...
What is it? Well, I named it. It's named Shithead. Because it shits on my head whenever it sees me.
Oh my god.
Okay. You know, I've been around for a minute, and I feel like your experience could be a shared one.
Don't tell the others.
No, I won't.
This is you and me thing.
This is not the first time that FCG has brought up a fear or like a hatred of birds. And this scene was so funny because it was so silly, but I think we need to take it with some seriousness because I think this is going to end up being a significant part of FCG's backstory. So what do you think this means? We've talked about the idea that maybe FCG's party was attacked by a bird-like creature. We've talked about maybe FCG having like a traumatic experience with being in stasis and not being able to help the party, and potentially birds of prey coming to eat the party after they had died. I don't know. You know the drill. Get in the comments. Let me know your ideas. I felt this was a very specific choice on Matt's part. So I think he is pushing those buttons a little bit because he knows what's going on in FCG's backstory. And after this little bit of a bonding moment where Chetney says, you know, he'll protect FCG from the bird, he is now a trusted companion of FCG, so he gets those bonuses and things that come with FCG's subclass. And speaking of Chetney, everybody's favorite werewolf, today's video is sponsored by Forgotten Fables, Wolves on the West Wind. An old threat is reawakening to devastate Thorwal, the windswept northern region of the medieval-inspired Aventuria. The land needs a hero, and you have been thrown into the midst of this conflict and forced to forge into the frigid unknown, vanquish evil, and restore peace to the countryside. Forgotten Fables Wolves on the West Wind is a story-based adventure set in Aventuria, the expansive setting of award-winning tabletop RPG The Dark Eye. Inspired by nearly 40 years of storytelling and lore, Wolves on the West Wind is the perfect jumping-off point to explore and discover this enchanting setting. Play as the grizzled warrior Ulrich, or the young wizard Nadim, and travel across the realm aboard the Keenwold, a Thorwalian raider's ship. Your choices throughout the game will bring you closer to victory or a devastating defeat. Every choice you make leads your character down a different path, unlocking unique NPCs, branching storylines, and multiple endings. With over 15 hours of gameplay, you can play again and again, seeing how your choices affect the outcome and the world. Forgotten Fables Wolves on the West Wind releases on Steam and iOS on May 25th, and if you'd like to see the game in action, I'm going to be playing it over on my Twitch channel on May 26th. I've put all of the details about that in the description below, so come and hang out with me and help me make some choices, because I can be kind of indecisive. Together, we will be victorious! Oh! Learn more at the links in the description below, and get ready to go on an adventure. Am I a scary werewolf? Okay, back to the video. The next day, Chetney gives Laudna a present that he was going to make her a companion for Pate, but now that she has her creepy puppet Sashimi, she doesn't need that anymore. So instead, he presents a house for Sashimi and Pate to live in. And of course, Travis actually gives Marisha a little wooden house, which is very cute. And Laudna is over the moon by this, and she says it reminds her of a shack, I think was the word she used, that her and Pate stayed in once in the early days, I suppose, after her revival. As they're moving away from the Raha Den, about a block and a half away, they hear a bit of a commotion, a bit of a scuffle, essentially a mugging that's going on just down a little alleyway. And of course, who's in that alleyway but a new character from guest Erika Ishii. And I'm so excited about this. I love Erika so much. I love everything they've been in that I've seen. I think they're amazing and wonderful, and I loved them in Monster Hearts for Critical Role. So yeah, I'm very excited to see them. I'm wondering how long they're gonna stick around. Hopefully it's gonna be a nice long period of time, just like with Robbie. So Erika is playing this character.
You see a very slight wayfish looking elf. Clearly you can tell by the pointy ears. They have close cropped black hair, tousled a bit. They have armor the color of the autumn that's clearly in disarray. And they have a rapier by their side that they're clutching guardedly. The rapier has shards, what look to be crystals, and interwoven metal barbs on the hilt. They have a tattoo climbing up their arm of the ocean waves, but rendered out in polygonal fractals. And she looks very, very afraid. Please, I don't, this is all I have.
Good, and it's all we're gonna have. Chop it, you live.
And we roll into a combat roll initiative. And speaking of combat, I did get something wrong about Ashton last week. I said that the portal rage ability they have is a new ability, but it was pointed out in the comments to me that it's actually just one of their rages that they have. They just haven't used that rage yet in a combat, so we haven't seen it yet. So I just assumed it was a new ability, but it seems like it's one of those 4 random rages that Ashton rolls anytime they rage. How many times did I just say rage? I don't know. I think the standout moment of this combat has got to be when Imogen decides to trigger wild magic using her Feywild shard.
So, you watch as Imogen reaches into her head and unleashes this torrent of power, You watch as the sparks leave the hand, and there's a slight blur in the air, almost like an invisible force is careening through both of the figures. One of them kind of grabs their head and tries to pull himself out of the way, taking some of the impact. The other, the knoll, is racked with pain, and you all kind of glance back and smile and see Lana grinning as all the... Sorry, Imogen. I know. And
You're
Laura,
also grinning.
It's Laura. Your name?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
You all look
Yeah,
back
we're
and watch
grinning.
as you're smiling, and the pink hair just falls out.
It's purple. It's purple.
No, it's
Leaving.
not. It's gone.
It is, you are a cue ball.
Oh no, I forwarded myself.
This just makes me laugh so much that the same effect happened to both Ford and Imogen across 2 campaigns. I love wild magic. I know some people don't like it at the table because it can be really disruptive, but I just think it is so fun. I'm just all for it all the time. The party quite handily defeat these foes and leave some dead and some unconscious. Surely that's not going to come back to bite them later. And everyone gets introduced to Dusk, Erica's character. They ask where she's from, what she's doing here, and she talks about things being kind of fuzzy, and how she was in the Feywild, and how she had been touched by the Feywild, and all she wanted to do desperately was to go back there. And it's at this point where she very helpfully gathers all of Imogen's fallen out hair and uses prestidigitation to make a wig, and then Imogen puts the wig on along with Chetney's hat. I cannot wait to see the fan art of that moment because I am sure it's hilarious. Fearne, being Fearne, just like goes off at this moment and goes to a tent where she finds inside an old lady who is seemingly getting high on something. And she goes and talks to her. She just starts taking random things from the tent because that's what she does. And she asks the old lady her name, who says that she can't remember it, but she knows it started with a D. Is this Dancer? Anybody? Or is it just a random NPC that Matt used the letter D because that's what he thought of? Probably. After leaving the tent again, Fearne tells Dusk that she's actually from the Feywild, and it seems like they might actually have a bit of connection because Dusk talks about seeing a beautiful glen, and Fearne talks about a beautiful glen that was near her home. Now, it is the Feywild. It's kind of a land of like beautiful landscapes, natural things, so there are probably lots of beautiful glens, but... So I want to hear your theories about Dusk. How does she fit into things? Where is her story going to go? Personally, I think that this is how we're going to get to the Feywild. We've been getting lots of connections to the Feywild over the last 24 episodes, and I think the party are probably going to go there soon. They're probably going to take Dusk there to help her go back to the Feywild because that's what she wants to do, and then we're going to have some whimsical adventures there. Some whimsicals and probably disturbing adventures, since that's kind of like the two-sided thing with the Feywild. I'm also so curious to know if Dusk is connected in any way with Fearne's grandmother, Morrigan. Yeah, let me know what you think. I'm so curious and excited to hear. They head to Taste of Tal'Dorei, which Dusk is very excited and enthusiastic about, and that is where we end the episode. And unfortunately, it's where we're going to get quite a long break because over the next 4 weeks, we have got EXU Calamity coming up. Now, don't worry, I am going to be covering that show. I'll do the same, I guess, kind of like recap theory dives that I do here, and I'm really excited to see what shakes out from that. I'm really hoping we're going to get some like nice juicy lore that's going to like make a few things click in place, and even if we don't, it's also just really exciting to see this event, to see this defining moment in so much of the world of Critical Role and its history. So yeah, I'm pumped. And also, I just love Brennan. I love Brennan so much. I'm so excited that Brennan is DMing on Critical Role. Ah! All right, so let's take a look at some of your theories from last week's episode. First of all, we got to talk about the incident with Chetney at the beginning of last week's episode. It seems like a few of you agreed with me that it was like crossing a line and it felt a little bit uncomfortable, but the rest of you, remind me not to ever get on your bad sides, hey? I promise I will never overcharge you for anything. I really liked this comment that pointed out that it might not have been Chetney giving in to his werewolf side or to like the beast side of himself, that it was actually more a statement about Chetney's ideals of fairness and upholding the tradition of his craft. He's talked a lot about being an MC, a master craftsman, and he really values that tradition, and he takes it really seriously if somebody besmirches it. So upselling or pricing up carpentry goods maybe he sees that as an attack on those values. And also, maybe, as this comment says, it connects somehow to Ultgar. Like, maybe something happened with Ultgar in this regard. And, you know, we know from the non-canonical cousin to Chetney, that there was absolutely some disgruntledness about the craft of making toys in the Christmas one-shot where Chetney is inspired from. So, you know, that also makes sense. A few of you have been talking in my comments recently over the last few weeks about how we could be seeing the first evil party that Critical Role has seen, and that this incident with Chetney is kind of another, I guess, proof of that happening. And I've seen some great examples of all the different ways that party members have been engaging in evil behavior. Not necessarily to say that they are evil, but that they have committed evil behavior. And in fact, my friend Matthew Perkins actually did a video about this, where he talked about, you know, some of the morally questionable behavior of the party, and people did not really agree with him about that. So it's kind of funny seeing people bring those theories into my comment section. Personally, I don't really see Critical Role intentionally going for a full evil party or an evil campaign, because I think it's really hard to make that likable if audience members don't know ahead of time that that's what they're getting into. It's like when you watch media like a TV show or a movie where there's like a character that you love to hate, it's like you kind of know that going in, that that's what it's going to be. I think unless you're doing that kind of a character, or you're doing like a comedy, so say for example like Dimension 20 did Escape from Bloodkeep, which is when they were all supposed to be evil villains, but it was very funny and kind of silly, so it didn't feel like they were unlikable. I feel like it would be really hard to pull that off in a campaign like the ones that Critical Role does, and I just don't know if they would risk alienating their audience, because, you know, they are a business. When it comes down to it, they do need people to watch the show. So I'm not sure if we're going to see like a purposefully evil party, but I absolutely agree that there have been some very morally questionable choices, and we're probably going to see more of that in the future. And I think Campaign 2 was really an exploration of that, of an exploration of those gray areas, whereas I think Campaign 1 felt much more cut and dry of like the bad guys and the good guys, and then yeah, Campaign 2 kind of delved a little more into the nuances of that. So yeah, I just wanted to point it out because a few people have been bringing it up in the comments, and I want to acknowledge that. And actually, circling back to this kind of like the party behaving questionably, I couldn't find where it was. I think it was in my Discord somebody posted this, so my apologies that I'm not giving credit, but I just couldn't find the comment. But somebody commented that maybe the stone that Imogen had and that Laudna broke, or Delilah broke last episode, maybe that was actually having a corrupting influence on the entire party, because Matt talked about the Nile Rock having a corrupting influence in the Feywild and kind of that corruption spreading. We've seen themes of corruption in Campaign 2 as well, like with the Savalier Wood. So maybe it was kind of corrupting the entire party, which is why they were sort of acting that way. And obviously that would involve some off-screen stuff, like obviously Matt would have had to inform the party that that was happening, but you know, they've kept secrets from the audience before plenty of times, so that's absolutely a possibility. I just thought that was interesting to think about. So last week I highlighted that little moment with Orym where he's training and he looks at the sun and he says, "Morning, Dad." So who was Orym's dad, I guess is the question. And Makaris points out this bit of information from EXU, which I had completely forgotten about, which is that Orym talks about his father in that series, saying that he left the family, he abandoned his mother, and that there are some like negative feelings there. So it doesn't feel like that would be the person he's referring to when he's looking at the sun. Now Derrig, who we have all speculated for quite a while is the father of Will, Orym's husband, had a sun tattoo. So maybe Orym kind of adopted him as a father figure, and that is why when he looks at the sun, he thinks of Derrig. Now Derrig was a character that Liam actually played in a one-shot many moons ago, so we're getting lots of connections here. And actually, I think this episode we did get definitive proof that Will, Orym's husband, is Derrig's son, because Orym mentions in the combat when he is stabilizing or healing one of the bad guys, he mentions Maeve, who is Derrig's daughter, and Nell, who is Derrig's wife. So yeah, even though we were all very sure about that family connection, it's nice to just have it like explicitly confirmed now. And Delilah. Quite a few ideas out there circulating about what she is up to with the Nile Rock. Some of you think that Laudna is Delilah's phylactery, that's how she is sustaining herself, and others that Delilah needs energy, just like Vecna needed energy from the rituals at the ziggurats to do whatever it is she's gonna do. Or that Delilah wants Laudna's body to bring herself back, so she's trying to bring Laudna's body back so that she can take it over and use it for her own purposes. We didn't hear from Delilah again this week, so we're just gonna have to be patient and wait. Thank you so much to my patrons and YouTube members. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/Luboffin or by pressing the join button underneath this video. All of your support is so greatly appreciated. Thank you. And thank you so much to Forgotten Fables, Wolves on the West Wind for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to come and hang out with me as I stream the game live on Twitch. All the details about that are in the description below. And I know I get some stuff wrong in these videos sometimes, but I'm kind of magic. I don't know. Did Ashton say it like that? I don't think so.
It's purple. It's purple.
No, it's
Leaving.
not. It's gone.
It is, you are a cue ball.
Oh no, I forwarded myself.
Lovers betwixt the campaign. Oh, man.
No, no. I mean, Imogen.
God damn it.
Oh, my God.
I'm a...
Chetney turns and sees this and just takes his hat and throws it to her.
It's kind of a cool look.
I just go, it's all right, it happens to me all the time, see? And yank out a chunk of my hair.
Don't. As I pull Chetney's cap down on my head.